No, I am not I'm not under arrest. I have not committed a crime.
And joining us now is Brad Flutey. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks, Calvin. Thanks, Anna.
So as I was saying in the introduction, you had somewhat of a shocking experience recently, and it's good to see the alternative media like Revolution News, Media, etc., with Shane Chafin bringing the story out, because I noticed the lamestream media certainly aren't reporting accurately, are they?
No, and I wouldn't even call us alternative media anymore. It's just facts and evidence-based media, and it's great when we just get all the facts and evidence out before they start piling out all the nonsense.
Yeah, they certainly love controlling the narrative, don't they?
They sure do.
Not this time.
For anyone that's not familiar with what actually happened and they're watching this for the first time, would you like to just start from the beginning and explain to people how it all unfolded?
Yeah, so to start from the beginning is to go back to the 2 previous times that I've been to this liquor land in Tikipanga. First time, I had a discussion with the manager, Jared. Great bloke. He just wanted to understand the perspective I was coming from the law-based angle. And he was comfortable that I wasn't telling him a mistruth when I said that I had an exemption and that I didn't have to show it to him, and said he was happy with that. The assistant manager was never happy with that conclusion, and she constantly was making up references to the Ministry of Justice and all this sort of stuff as to why she doesn't believe she has to serve me. The second time I went in, she refused to serve me again, was insisting that I show her my mask exemption. I asked her to go and get Jared. She went and got Jared. Jared came out, looked at me, looked at her, said, look, we've talked about this, serve him. The day before yesterday, 17th of January, I've gone into the store again to buy rum, not necessarily just for myself, and it's for, it lasts throughout the week. We have a rum and ginger ale and ginger beer once a night. So I don't even know why I have to clarify that. But
so you went out, you're not a hardcore drinker that you're going out on a Monday at midday to get your necks fixed.
And we have to, at this point, of course, talk about brutal truth and debunking conspiracies altogether, because they're just basically little minions of the mainstream media anyway, and they're online deliberately to try to take apart any facts and evidence that we present. So I want to give them a bit of a shout out, because their ratings and their following is definitely tanked, and they're struggling to get anywhere. So we'd go give them a bit of support, give them a bit of heaps, and tell them really what's up.
I'm not actually really a big drinker. I actually stopped drinking for a good year. But we had a few rum and ginger ales, and a police officer, after I went, just before I went to the hospital, recommended ginger beer. So tried ginger beer now, and that goes nicely. It's a nice caramel taste. I appreciate the taste. So no, I was just there getting a drink for the week, and the assistant manager was there with the young girl who was behind the cashier. The young girl was not sure, because she was told different things by the assistant manager. So she asked for the assistant manager's advice. The assistant manager gave her incorrect advice and said that, no, don't serve him unless he shows his mask exemption. I said, look, Jared's already told you that you have to serve me. He's the manager. She said, Jared's not here. If you refuse to show your mask exemption, I'm calling the police. I said, go and call the police then, and we'll sort this out here. So she goes off to call the police. I have a short discussion with the cashier. I say to her, have you got Jared's number? Maybe I could give Jared a call. And she goes, yeah, I could get you Jared's number if you want. I'll just serve these guys first. And so I was like, okay, step to the side. She served a couple of people. And then as soon as she's finished serving them, the police were there. I was quite surprised. A few weeks ago, probably a month ago now, I went to New Zealand Post to get my package, and they refused to give it to me because I wouldn't show my mask exemption there either. It took 2 hours for the police to turn up when I rang them in and reported theft. And they tried to serve a trespass notice to me and give my package to me at the same time, and I only took the package. So the police turned up. They immediately said to the cashier, is this him? And she just sort of shrugged her shoulders, and I said, hey, how can I help you guys? And he said, can you come out of the store, please? And I said, no, I need to confirm who you are. Are you a constable? Were you acting under the office of constable? And he said, yes. And then I said, cool, so what's your name, constable? And he said, no, look, I'm not answering any of your questions. Come out of the store now, or you're under arrest. And I said, what are you arresting me for? And he said, disorderly conduct. And I said, what disorderly conduct? And then they started trying to grab me. And I said, get your hands off me. Don't touch me. And then they escalated to trying to grab me. Both of them tried to grab me. I noticed out of the corner of my eye that the cashier was getting a little bit distressed. So I sort of maneuvered my way out of their grabbing and started backing out of the store. At this point, the officer with the glasses, who's seen in the first scene holding the taser, he starts trying to punch me in the face. And I managed to block the punches that he was throwing And I was a bit confused at this point. I was like, "What are you doing, man? What's going on? Why are you doing this?" And then he reaches and grabs this pepper spray out immediately and starts pointing at me. I was like, "What are you doing pointing at me? This is out of control." And then the next thing I remember is just orange jets spraying out of it, and I tried to dodge some of it, but it got on my face, all over my shoulder, and then the rest is. We get to the point of the video that my daughter started taking, and that's when he's got his taser out. So he's put the pepper spray away, and then he's got his taser out immediately afterwards, and he's threatening me with that. And the rest is all on the video.
Can you imagine what would happen if they were all armed?
Yeah. I mean, I only thought about that afterwards. You know, where does it go if police officers are not coming in to de-escalate a situation, and it just goes from escalation to escalation to escalation. These idiots like this, and look, I know heaps of great police officers. This isn't something against the entire police force, although I will say this. To the good police officers out there, where's your nuts? You're not based in law anymore. You can't call yourself under the office of constable if you're not based in law. And if you're going to let these guys behave like this, it just brings the whole organisation down.
Agreed.
Yeah, we've just got that footage rolling, and it'll be great to watch it again and you talk us through it, because you really had the police on the back foot.
Yeah, even though I was walking backwards.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something that really gets to me. First of all, if a business doesn't want to serve someone, and that person, of course, naturally says, why not? And then they call the police come, the narrative is always the same. It's a private business, they can refuse entry based on whatever the hell they decide they're going to base it on. But however, if those same businesses say, you know what, to hell with these mandates, they're not actually law anyway, and they require our consent to enforce them, we're going to allow anyone to come, then all of a sudden the regime starts issuing big fines against them. There is no what would you call it?
Well, it's hypocritical, isn't it? Because on one hand, they're saying that businesses have the right to refuse anybody who's not wearing a mask. But then on the other hand, they're not allowing businesses who will accept everybody, they're not allowing the businesses to have their own autonomy.
Exactly.
So which is it? Does the business have autonomy and basically get to trump human rights and basically get to discriminate against whoever they want to? Or is there law that actually businesses can't trump because all human beings deserve equal treatment?
Speaking of the Human Rights Commission, they've dropped their nuts as well, because they are so lame. They've taken all of that off. You make complaints to the Human Rights Commission, it means nothing. As usual, it's just another political tool being used in the arsenal of the government against everyone else. Because remember, a lot of these people, just like the police commission, they're just politically appointed lackeys. Everyone knows Costas is useless as tits on a bull. He wasn't even in the running for the top job. The real cops were. But unfortunately, they don't get to that position because they've actually got a brain. And now all the people out there who are resisting the jab, like you say, the good cops and the Defence Force personnel, and that, of course, is going through legal challenges. This is just completely and utterly out of control. What's your take on that, Brad?
Those are really excellent points both of you brought up. Human rights. In fact, in the Policing Act, one of the principles they have is to uphold human rights. Okay, why? Because human rights are based in law, not civil legalese. And the other point that you made up about private businesses having some rights in terms of being private property, they do, but they're also open to the public, which means they're subject to laws when you're operating in the public. So if, say, for example, you can refuse service to someone, but under what basis? If you're refusing service under a basis that breaches law, then that's unlawful. You can't do that. What the COVID Response Act has done is it's made it Binion's rule, and that's not true. If the Human Rights Act, if you overrule the Human Rights Act and someone hasn't consented to a policy that overrides the Human Rights Act, you're breaking the law. Doesn't matter whether you think that you're enforcing civil legalese. Legislation is last in time when it comes to law, because first in time is best in law. If your ignorance of the law is not my problem, that's also covered under Section 25 of the Crimes Act. I think it's section 25. You don't have any standing if you're ignorant of the law. So what businesses need to realize is the government's being very clever in terms of shifting liability onto you. And you have to be very careful. If your customers are not consenting to legislation that's not based in law, you're in the wrong. And you're liable.
So can we just go back to the video, Brad, and go back to the, you know, so you've come out of the store, they've pepper sprayed you, and then at that point, your daughter, what was happening from her point of view? Because we see that shot. You've still got your shirt on at that point, and so she just starts filming because she obviously doesn't know what's going on.
I want to know when they shot you. At what point did they put the first lot of barbs into you?
There you can see the police officer, he's aiming something at you. So is that the point where the first shot came?
No, the first shot came, and you can see the first shot. It's when I get caught like this, and I snap the cables, and it stops the shot. So what I was thinking the whole time while he had the taser pointed at me is, I don't want this going into my back. I need to be facing him. I need to be moving side to side, and I need to have my hands ready because I know what it's like on electric fences. My grandfather, Granddad George, he was always a bit of a prick. He'd tell me that the fences were off when they were on, and I was getting bolts all the time. So I knew that this was going to make me tense up and unable to do anything. So if my hands were close to where it was, I could get it. And so that's what got me out of the first tase. In reference to my daughter, I don't know what she was thinking, but I can imagine she was thinking, here we go again. Oh, that's right. I forgot to record everything in Mitre 10 and New Zealand Post. I better do that now. And so, well done. Thank you, love.
Hats off to her. Yep, she did a great job. So then you can see the police is pulling his taser back in. And then what happened?
So after I snapped the cables, I think the other officer tried to grab me. And this is when I first became aware of the other guy in maroon. He never announced himself at all. It's like he appeared like a little leprechaun. Oh, here I am, but I haven't brought my pot of gold. And he's on my arm. And I sort of said to him, who are you? What are you doing? And he never said a word the entire time. I had no idea whether he was a civilian, whether he was an officer, whether he was a homeless person, but he wasn't wearing a mask. So if he was an employee of anywhere, he's in breach of the COVID Response Act because he's given his consent by being an employee for something that is basically being an employee for the corporation that is the state, is giving your consent to all of their civil legislation.
Yeah.
So, but then it turns out, doesn't it, that he actually had a taser as well?
Actually, he took that taser off the officer who hadn't drawn his taser yet.
Oh, right.
Other one. I think I broke the one that the guy, the initial taser, the initial tasering officer had. I think I broke the black bit off it because he, if you see when they were holding me after the first tase, he tried to jam it into my back, but it didn't fire. And that's,
you're wriggling around.
Yeah.
And then you're on the ground. Not quite. Can you see that video playing at the same time?
I can't see the video.
Okay, so they've just released you. This is the first time we've tried this with a guest on the shows playing the video at the same time. But they've still got you. They're all still holding you, and you're trying to get out of their grip.
Yeah, so no, most of the time not really trying to get out of the grip. The other officer, he's got the handcuffs and he's trying to get them on my hand, but he's caught it around my fingers and I'm telling him to stop because he's hurting my fingers. And what he does is he squeezes the cuffs around my fingers, which is actually cut into the fingers over here. And so I'm just holding the cuffs while he's trying to put it on me, and I'm telling him to stop. And then he starts trying to knee me in the nuts. He kneed me once, kneed me twice, gave me another one that sort of got me leaping back, and I thought enough, and I booted him and dropped him on the ground.
Yeah, I must admit, for people like me, that was legend. That was legendary.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of women that were quite happy that masculinity hasn't completely faded in this country.
Yeah, no limp-wristed dick males that in that shot, except the ones trying to, of course, arrest you.
Yeah, I could have done better, I think. I could have done better. I was in two minds all the time because I knew they weren't acting lawfully, but the uniform confuses you. And you're not really sure what you're allowed to do in this moment. But, you know, after all of this, I feel like the message that I should give to people is if these guys are acting unlawfully, they're not police officers anymore. They are criminals. They are assaulting you.
It'll be like some thug coming up to you and demanding you do something, and you look at them, you think, piss off. That's what we'd naturally do. So just because they come looking like a smurf, well, why would you then turn around and say, oh, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir? It's just hang on a minute. Unless you're operating within the bounds of law instead of policy enforcement, then you can go jam it right up your jacksie, yeah?
Absolutely. And there's actually legislation within their system that protects you. You can act in self-defense. If these officers who have claimed to be acting under the Office of Constable in Section 22 of the Policing Act are acting unlawfully, they're no longer constables under the Office of Constable, and you can defend yourself to whatever degree you determine necessary. Not excessive, necessary. You can drop them, you can use their handcuffs and cuff them up if you have the skills, because they are not acting as lawful as the lawful constabulary anymore. They're acting like thugs, and thugs like that need to be purged from the police force. They give it a bad name. We need to be trusting these people to protect us. We need to not be purging people based on their medical choices. We need to be purging people from the police force based on their level of thuggery.
Yep, I 100% agree with that. And all of those cops who have not taken the jab, others who have been purged from the police force because you had a brain and you were all about keeping people safe, investigating crime against person and property, you guys need to stay ready to fill the breach when this regime goes down, because it will. This cannot stand. Any police officer who is enforcing any of this based on the fact that there is nothing, and I mean nothing, to back it up, they are as guilty as sin, just like the government committing democide against this population. They are all. You can go back to any act in the past, go back to Section 61 or something of the Magna Carta, lawful rebellion. You have the absolute right to remove these cretins because they are trying to kill you. And all these idiots walking around by themselves with no one within cooey distance of them with masks on, what the hell are you doing, you brainless twerps? And yet people like you, Brad, who decide to stand and actually say, whoa, this madness has gone too far. What the hell are you on about? All of a sudden, you're the bad guy. Go figure.
Yeah, well,
I mean, happened when
hang on, let him answer. I just had my epic rant. He's got to now bring it back because it's man talk now.
No, I was just going to say, 2,000 years ago, and I'm not saying I'm anywhere near this. It's just a reference to history. Over 2,000 years ago, a man started walking around in the area of Israel and started saying a few things that really bothered people, that triggered people, but wasn't necessarily not true, was it? It followed the lines of truth very carefully, but it offended a lot of people, and they ended up putting him on a cross. Yeah. And look, that's just an example of today. If you manipulate people to be stupid, you will get a mob and you will get a society that is tending towards chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, Brad, can you just tell people, again, for those who don't know the full story, what happened when the camera stopped rolling?
Okay, good question, because I haven't actually been asked this yet. So after the camera stopped rolling, I was still insisting that I was not under arrest because these people were not acting like police officers. They were acting outside the bounds of the law, and people who are acting outside the bounds of the law cannot arrest anybody. They got me up into the car. The officer who started all of this, he asked me something. I think he was trying to place me under his jurisdiction, and I said, I don't understand. You're acting unlawfully. And he goes, he said, F off, dickhead, and slammed the door on my head. The window hit my head. I sort of leaned back a little bit, so it hit me just as it shut. And he was just abusing me most of the time. The sergeant there, Craig, he was a decent enough bloke. Once everything was sorted out, one of the officers, I can't remember which one, was trying to coerce details out of my daughter. My daughter was very smart, and she was telling him, I'm not talking to you, I can sort myself out. The sergeant wanted to make sure that Olivia was safe. He came around and he asked me, can you talk to Olivia? And I said, yep, sure, I can talk to Olivia, but she's 15. She can take care of herself. She doesn't need any of your help. And then we were on our way, and then once that was all sorted out, we were driving back to the station. By this time, the pepper spray was really starting to work. I couldn't see. It was burning all over my face. It was the worst part of the whole ordeal was the pepper spray. But we're having a conversation in the car. Craig was really decent. He was asking what happened about the whole situation, so I outlined the whole situation. He actually agreed. He said to me, I agree, when I said that the COVID Response Act was unlawful. He also agreed with it seemed like he agreed with my interpretation of the situation and the interpretation of the relevant sections and acts in reference to me not having to show my mask exemption because of Section 49 of the Privacy Act. So that was a confusing time for me in the back of a police wagon where I'm apparently being arrested, yet the arresting officer's boss is agreeing with my interpretation of legislation. So when I got back to the police station, an ambulance was called shortly after. I was introduced to another officer, Hayden, lovely guy. We had our conversation was basically just banter about Hamilton and the river of STDs, and he informed me that ginger beer mixed with rum is a better mix. I should try that. They gave me a bucket of water to try and get the pepper spray off. Funnily enough, I was never taken. I don't think I was taken into the station. I felt like I was in the car park or the door just from the car park, not quite into the station. So I think there's like a door from the car park, and then you go through this little check place, and there's another door. I was just in that section being treated for the pepper spray. The ambulance arrived. The two ambulance officers helped me up. The officer who started all this was saying some stuff to me. I feel it was maybe he tried to throw some papers at me. I didn't understand. I couldn't hear him, and I think I said, I can't see. I'm blind. Fuck off, you dickhead. And the ambulance officers guided me to the ambulance, where they attempted to treat me in the ambulance on the way to the hospital and make sure that the pins weren't forced in any deeper than they were, especially the ones on the back, because when they shot me in the back, they rolled me onto my back, which dug them in deeper. And the ambulance ladies who I'd love to get in touch with, they were quite horrified by the whole situation. They said that the officer the Northern English officer, the guy that facilitated all of this, that they've actually had to treat someone who's dealt with his thuggery before. And so I thought that was an interesting comment from one of the ambos. But they were lovely. They helped me out. Whangarei Hospital was amazing. They didn't require to see my mask exemption. The Angela there, who took all the taser spikes out, I've got them here. She let me take them home for evidence. She took them out very, very nicely, very gently, and then my sister picked me up and we went to another Liquorland, and I ended up getting my rum and ginger ale after all. I got one of them. I got ginger beer on the advice of the I think it was Sergeant Hayden.
Cripes, you need a drink after that. So anyway, they come, they cause a kerfuffle, they do everything they're not meant to do. They obviously forgot their police training about de-escalation. And obviously that guy was hell-bent on coming after you anyway, and by hook or by crook, he was going to get you, and it turns out it was by crook. Funny. But you weren't charged, were you? Are you facing any charges?
So Shane Chafin, he rang the courthouse yesterday as media, and he asked if Brad was on the Brad Flutey was on, being charged, or he was registered with the court, and the answer was no. So, and I've noticed that the mainstream propaganda have gone out and said that the police are looking to charge me. I mean, there were claims thrown around that I was assaulting a police officer. If I was assaulting a police officer, why have I not been charged yet? Why was I never even taken into the police station? I'll tell you why. Because I haven't committed a crime, and the only charge that's going to be laid is the charge that will be laid on the individual that assaulted me.
Actually, there was two though, wasn't there? There was one who was trying to take away your masculinity, for a better phrase, with his boots or knees. And then, of course, there was the purple minion who looked like basically an anorexic Teletubby. Now, we have a still picture of his, of course, and of course, anyone who knows this guy, we don't know who he is. We don't know if he's Security Intelligence Service following all us rebel people around, because, I don't know, we have a few brains and we've got the real information, facts and evidence that they don't want coming out. We don't know if he's with a detective or an off-duty cop. So any one of those could apply. But until you get discovery, we're not going to know, are we?
No, and that's to me that's concerning. One, am I being surveilled? Two, if so, why? Three, if you're an employee for the Crown Corporation, why aren't you subject to the COVID Response Act? And I allegedly am. Three, why didn't you declare yourself? Four, why are you using another officer's issue taser to taser me in the back? This is supposed to be a defensive weapon to disarm a person who is attacking a defender. This is the only person that was defending anything was me, and that's covered under the Crimes Act. I am covered to be acting in self-defense. If I'm walking backwards and someone is advancing towards me with a weapon, nobody except the completely insane would think that the roles were reversed. And so I want to know who this person is, and he is a person. I want it, not a man. I want to know who this person is because he's committed crimes against me and he needs to be charged. I want to give... A few people have asked me whether I'm going to take this any further. Yeah, I'm going to take it further. I'm going to offer the New Zealand Police two choices. Either defend the criminals as an organisation, so I have to take on the organisation, which I'm quite happy to do. You can make that choice. But I don't have a problem with a lawful organisation. If you want to continue to be a lawful organisation, you will deal with these two individuals in-house. I'll give you that option. But there will be some conditions. I want a written and in-person apology from those two individuals. I want to know who the other individual is because he assaulted me in civvy clothes. So I want him treated like a civilian under the same legislation that everybody else is treated under. So, and I want him charged. I will give the New Zealand Police an option. If they apologise in writing and in person, if they admit that they committed the crimes that I said they committed, then I will allow them to deal with it in-house, but they have to release the details on how they've dealt with it. That's option one. Option two, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to deal with these issues in-house, then I will charge you as an organisation. And I will then require the police commissioner's apology. This is unprecedented. You cannot attack New Zealand citizens based on opinion. Law is based in fact. Okay? If you want to micromanage the behaviours of individuals that don't cause harm, you can secure that through their consent. That's what the legislative system's for. But you don't get to force your opinions on everybody. If there are people out there that know how to not consent, you need to leave them alone. And this is an example of them not doing that. And in fact, taking it to the extreme. You pepper sprayed me. You tried to punch me in the face. You tried to cut my fingers off with handcuffs. You tasered me, not once, but twice, and once in the back. I told you to stop numerous times. You broke so much legislation, we can go through the Crimes Act and take our pick. No, I won't be charged. I haven't been charged, and it's likely never going to happen. Why? Because the criminals in this instance is quite clearly those people pretending to be police officers.
Yeah, I agree. And what happened to no means no?
Yeah.
Isn't that their biggest thing? Oh, no means no. You can be charged with it because that person said no. And the one thing that really gets to me, I suppose, is when the police use the old line, I have reason to believe. I have, there's a suspicion that. None of those carry any sort of weight whatsoever. That, again, is an opinion. It's your opinion that you have a suspicion. Hell, I have a suspicion you're a eunuch. Drop your drawers. You know what I mean? We can all play that game.
And if you have reason to believe, what's the reason? For example, I asked them, what crime am I committing? Disorderly conduct. What disorderly conduct? The individual is calmly trying to ascertain what the reason is for you to believe something. If you don't provide the reason, you don't have a reason.
Yeah.
Now you're an absolute hero in the eyes of a lot of New Zealanders right now, Brad, because as we all know, the overreach of the state is just completely nuts right now, and actually having somebody stand up to their thugs that are actually implementing a lot of these draconian laws is great to see for the freedom movement, or for those who actually believe in the right to choose whether you deprive yourself of oxygen or whether you stick a needle in your arm and take an experimental poison. But for the other side, or the people that are on the fence that might say, the critics that might say, well, why didn't you just peacefully allow them to arrest you? Why did you? They might accuse you of resisting arrest, and why didn't you just be arrested and then fight it out in the courts and let them charge you? Why didn't you do that?
I've watched a lot of freedom fighters do that. It didn't make it any easier for them, and when I started realizing how the legislation works and how the law works, I started realizing that arrest is only definable as an arrest if I'm being arrested by a lawful police officer. If someone is saying you're under arrest and they're in civvy clothes and they're just acting like a thug and they have no lawful jurisdiction and they're not behaving lawfully, you're not under arrest. If this was any other person in the world that was trying to attack you and assault you, you would defend yourself. Just because they're wearing a blue uniform does not make them a police officer. It's the character that matters, the way they conduct themselves. That's why they're supposed to get all this training. That's why the Policing Act has all of this information on your conduct and your principles, what you stand for, your oath. That's all important. If it wasn't important, it wouldn't be there. So instead of basing it on the color of your skin, base it on the character of the individual. And I saw the character of that individual and I thought, no way, I don't consent, I ain't going to comply, and you ain't going to force your opinions on me. So to all the freedom fighters out there, if someone tries to unlawfully arrest you and you have the mana to defend yourself, defend yourself. All these people are waiting for people to stand up and put actions to their words, and it's taken me a while. But I had the opportunity that day, and I decided to do it. And I'll tell you what, if they try it again, I'll do the same thing again, but better.
Yep. And I'll answer the question as well, because you shouldn't bloody well have to.
Yeah.
That's the plain and short of it. If a whole lot of thugs decide they're going to rob your house, you don't say, okay, boys, rob my house and I will deal with it later and we'll take care of it that way. No. You try to take my shit, I'm going to kick your head in.
Yeah.
So you stop taking my shit. Excuse language. Because this is actually really getting to me now. We have a police force who's basically aiding and abetting the democide of this country. They are going after people who have the audacity to stand their ground. And they get in their little groups, whether it's the Security Intelligence Service, which is a fucking oxymoron, the GCSB, who monitors everything, so should know that the politicians are as crooked as a dog's hind leg and should be feeding that to the cops to start taking out those parasites. Then you have all the little squads and teams where they have walls with all these little joining dots and all the people they suspect has been in with them so they can try and network and map. We know how the game's played. All for what? Because people want to stand to stop you murderous bastards taking out our kids and other people. You have no legitimacy, New Zealand government, and all you sidestep parties that are doing absolutely nothing to stop it or slow it down. You are all unlawful. You should all be stood down and removed by force if necessary. And any police officer who does not stand with the people on this, then you should be removed by force if necessary at the same time. You are guilty of so many crimes, it's unbelievable. Even enforcing, look at the strangulation part or the suffocation part where these bloody masks are doing.
Section 189A of the Crimes Act covers that too.
Exactly. Yep. But the corrupt courts do nothing but give shit in favor of government. So the courts, the government, the police, the little triumvirate of misfits and miscreants are causing carnage and problems. So the people who have the balls like yourself should do exactly what you've done. And I encourage en masse for people to do that. If the cops are out there trying to save people, assist them, help them. There are good community cops. There are cops I know that are great and they hate what is going on, but they will not speak up. And that pisses me off. Sorry, yep. Brad, I just get a bit hot under the collar about this sort of crap because it's got to stop.
That's all right, bro. Look, you raised some very good points as well about our kids. My kid was sitting in the car and I knew she was going to watch this stuff, eh? And she's surrounded by a lot of victims in her generation, and that's been by design as well. You know, the stuff we put on those screens that we allow our kids to have, it's turned a lot of the next generation boys that are coming through into a whole lot of victims. And that don't suit her. She doesn't like that stuff. And I didn't want her to watch her father be turned into a victim. It was bad enough that it ended with me on my back, but I wasn't going to allow her to watch me curl up like a victim in front of two thugs who were masquerading as police officers. I just wasn't going to do that. And she's made a lot of difficult decisions over the last year. She loves her dance, loves it, does nothing but dance everywhere she is. And this jab mandate has made it so she had to give up her dance. Yeah. And the last thing I was going to show her was me submitting to two thugs who were masquerading as police officers when she's made the hard choice herself to give up dance so she could maintain her body sovereignty.
Yeah, good on her too. And when you take action against the individuals involved, and if it needs to be the organisation, make sure it comes with a very hefty financial penalty as well, because they love issuing fines for anything that they can drum up. Because believe me, they have given the mainstream media a whole well-packaged ability to completely and utterly distort and do what they normally do. And that's basically make you look like the dick and them look like the victims. And that, again, is another thing that pisses me off. I'm quite pissed off today, actually, aren't I?
Yeah, I hear that. Just before we wrap it up, though, Brad, congratulations for, taking a stand and showing your daughter what it means to be, a good, strong man in the face of bullies, basically. You didn't cower and you chose to do the right thing. I've got one more question before you go, because I'm trying to work it out. Are you just a superhuman and you managed to withstand getting tasered twice, or did the police tasers somehow not actually work?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have a little bit of a phobia about electricity, so when the taser came out, I was a bit concerned. But when it hit me the first time, I actually felt like it wasn't that bad. The second time, it must have gotten really deep, and it just locked my spine up, and I dropped. And I think I remember hitting my face on the ground when I dropped. And he kept sort of it on until I rolled over him, asked him to stop, and he stopped not long after I asked him. But I mean, the guy shouldn't have even had the taser anyway. So look, if there's people out there that think that, well, I can't do this because Brad's superhuman, don't think that. The power of belief is something that you could use, as well as getting out there, doing some training. Don't just train your body, train your mind as well. The whole point of this is that you need to be a better example than the thugs that are in there. We can't fight fire with fire. We've got to become like water, like Bruce Lee said. Yeah, get out there and start turning yourselves into the men and women we need to send our country off in a better direction than what it's heading.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's a great way to finish. Thanks so much for all the work that you're doing, Brad. Just before we go, tell everybody where they can find your work.
They can find me on Horace Media on Telegram. They've basically purged me from Facebook, but that's all right. We don't need Facebook. We're building a website as well, and we're also going to put the constitution that that me and several others have been working on, because I really believe that if we're going to get out of this hellhole, we need to build a whole new ship. We need to tear this system down and create one that's going to benefit us and the land better than what it's doing to us. So part of that is the constitution. So keep an eye out for that. Catch me on Telegram. Thank you to Counterspin. You've just been doing it solid ever since you started. You guys are awesome.
No, much appreciated, mate. We'll have you again on to give us an update on whether the police acquiesce and charge those clowns, or whether they are going to, as usual, close ranks and cover everything up in a whitewash.
Yeah, that'd be a mistake.
Yes, certainly will. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, guys.